Hello, my Girl Fight family. I am Kathy James, your host, and today I have the pleasure of introducing Elayna Fernandez, founder of The Positive Mom. Elayna is a best-selling author, internationally acclaimed storyteller, and an award-winning mom entrepreneur. As a multiple-time trauma survivor, Elayna's mission is to provide moms with skills and steps to find peace and to break unhealthy cycles so that they can feel whole. Welcome, Elayna. I am so excited to have you today and can't wait for everybody to hear your girl fight story.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Kathy. This is a joy just to be with you and with everyone that's watching us and listening today.
Great. So I know that we have a limited time with one another, so I'm just going to jump in.
Yes.
I know a little bit about your girl fight story, but I want the audience to get to know that story a little bit more and to get to know you and your passions and how those passions came about. So on your website, thepositivemom.com, you tell a little bit of a story, and you introduce it as a fairy tale story. Can you tell us a little bit about your Once Upon a Time story?
Oh, thank you so much for asking that because I believe that every happily ever after has a once upon a time.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
so when we look at people and we see their success and their happiness and their wins and their achievements, we focus on that and we don't look at where they came from
Mhm.
because that's where we connect when we share our painful stories, when we share our once upon a time. And I grew up in a slum in the Dominican Republic. And
Mhm.
so my childhood was filled not only with extreme poverty and a lot of struggle, but it was also a very dysfunctional household.
Mhm.
So as a child, I started telling stories, and it started with my teachers at school,
Yeah.
sharing the things that really hurt me and the things that I was going through at home that I didn't feel safe telling anyone. And at that time, I'm 45 right now, and another country, they couldn't really intervene. But I
Okay.
remember my teacher just getting down to my level. I'm very short. I'm 4'8" and a half. The half is very important.
We've had this conversation about your height.
Yes. And she got down to my level. This was the first time I was 4 years old when this happened. And she looked into my eyes and she just gave me a tight hug.
Mm.
And that was the first time that I fell in love with storytelling because I could see that stories connect us. And
Mm.
my parents were really passionate about education because they knew that that was the way that we were going to get out of the slum and that we were going to grow. They couldn't really pursue an education in their youth, so they enrolled me in school when I was 2.5.
Right.
So by
Wow.
4 years old, I was 3 when I started writing and reading, and I've continued that with my daughters.
Mhm.
And so I started writing when I was 4 years old, like all these stories to my teacher. And I just could see that the stories of pain that we all go through connect us, and they create not only connection, but they create purpose. Because
Right.
then I became a storyteller at a very young age, and I figured out when it was safe to tell my story and when it wasn't safe to tell my story. But fast forward to that, when I was 7 years old, my brother and I, we just got back from fetching water, and we ran to the landfill behind our little home, our little hut or shack, and I found amongst the trash and all the revolting garbage, I found a magazine that we started to look at, and we started to see all these bright pictures and all these fun kids that had books. They wore tennis shoes and jeans, everything we dreamed of. But most importantly, these kids were happy. They had, it seemed like a very tight, joyful family in which the parents were together, and they were, just reading together and playing together. And I looked at my brother and I said, maybe if we learn this language, we could have this life. And so the magazine was in English, and I decided that I was going to start my first business, which was a storytelling cardboard puppet theater.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that was the first time that I actually consciously turned a disadvantage into an advantage, because we didn't have electricity at night. And so we just gathered around and I could make my coins and save up. So at 7 years old, I made that decision. At 11 years old, I started my English classes. And by the time I was 15, I was already one of the instructors, and I taught English as a second language. But telling those stories not only gave me the income that I needed to fulfill my vision, it also gave me the motivation, the inspiration that I needed. And I'll talk more about inspiration and motivation, because motivation is a driver that could be positive or negative. you
Yes.
know i
Yes.
was looking i was looking for worth outside of myself. And
Right.
so the inspiration was that vision that was pulling me to a deeper purpose of love, connection, peace, that I so needed as a child and I need now, and that we all need. But the motivation was to achieve and to, have titles and things, and just
Right.
what I call prove, produce, and perform. And
Right.
so we gotta be careful when we think about connection, and thinking about how we're going to get there. Is it through motivation or inspiration? So that was the beginning of my story as a storyteller. And
Right.
there is so much that we can go into, but I wanted to just give that little bit, because I know that we are both passionate to help young girls. And I was a very broken young girl, and yet,
Mhm.
I'm here. So if I made it through that, you
Right.
know, and I know that there are so many things that we go through, I think that we can all make it through anything.
Absolutely. I think that there's so much that we can take away from that. One being that we take the luxuries that we have in the United States for granted, and we forget about the struggles of the countries that don't have the those what we call necessities, right? So I think that's a tremendous story, and I'm so glad that you um, had that vision, that hope at a very young age, and that you had some amazing parents that instilled in you the desire to grow and to be, to educate yourself. And I'm tremendously proud of you, and
Oh,
so excited that we have found this new friendship.
thank
But then we talk about our personal struggles as women and our desires to help women, because we know that there's a different future that's possible than what we were accustomed to when we were younger. And so I appreciate you.
you. Oh, I
And
appreciate you too.
it one of my questions, I'm jumping out of line, not that there's an order, right, was about, our dreams, when we think about where we are today or where we're wanting to go. Did you always, have that vision of when you decided to branch out to start helping mothers and women, did you always see yourself as standing in front of a large crowd or being an internationally acclaimed mom entrepreneur? When you started down that journey, was that always a vision of yours?
No, actually, when I to wrap up my last story,
Yeah.
I went on to be very successful, to have all of the things. In the Dominican Republic, I had a very amazing corporate career. I finished high school when I was 15. So, I had a lot going for me knowing a second language. So it did open a lot of doors. But then I fell in love, got married, eventually moved to the United States. And when my daughters, my oldest two, I have four,
Hmm.
but at that time I had two daughters, they were 1 and 2. I found myself just absolutely hopeless,
Mm.
heartbroken, homeless,
Mm.
desolate, desperate. And I was laying on the ground in the fetal position, just feeling like there's nothing more for me in this life. I've been through so much, and there has been so much abuse and so much neglect and so much loneliness. I felt really alone in the world. And then, I came for my happily ever after, my family that I wanted. And then, I get a letter that it's too much and I need to do it alone. And so in that moment, Kathy, I lost all faith,
Mm.
lost all faith. And that's actually when I got the inspiration again, the inspiration to create something. But it happened for me because I connected with that vision, that inspiration of my childhood. So
Right.
I always said, yeah, I got to wear the jeans, I got to wear the tennis shoes. I bought my
Sure.
first book when I was 13, so I got all those things. I got the accolades, I got the shiny stuff, but I never found that peace, that joy,
Right.
and oof, just that feeling of worthiness that I
Mhm.
saw in the magazine. And I just, started to think in that moment, like, is God a liar? Like, I saw it that this would be for me. And then it hit me. I'm in the United States. I know English, and my English is very good looking.
It is.
Celia Cruz, the singer, used to say that. Very good
Uh,
looking. And this vision was for my children. It was for my little girls. It wasn't for me. It was for me through them. And so that inspiration got me off of that floor. And I just wanted to shout it through the roof, you
yes.
know? And I remember, that two things came to my mind. First, it was the movie Life is Beautiful,
Mm.
in which, he's going through all these horrors and he's having such a playful attitude. And then the second thing was the Beatitudes. And I was like, why is this coming to me? And that's, for those who don't read the Bible, I do. And that's a section in the Bible about who will be blessed. And I thought to myself, or I heard the message, it's not what you're going to do, it's who you're going to be that matters. And
Yes.
so I couldn't come up with what was the solution, what I was going to do. I didn't know how to drive. I wasn't, I was homeless. I didn't have a penny to my name. I didn't have a bank account. I didn't have anything. Family support system in the United States. So I wrote a to-be list for the first time, and I've been doing that ever since for
Um,
almost 18 years, every single day. And when I got that inspiration, and the very first thing that I wrote was be positive. And so that's what drove me to create the Positive Mom. It was to share those stories. I remembered, my childhood. Sharing those stories would connect me and create that beautiful purpose and that beautiful vision. And so I wanted to connect with other moms and tell them, you know what? I have been through all of this, and I have my moments of darkness, but
Sure.
I hang on to my light, to the light, and we can do that together. And I just felt so alone. So the inspiration comes from service. It wasn't
Yeah.
like, oh, I want to be on the stage, and it was none of that. That was added on to me.
Sure.
But when we create something from an inspiration, it's always with the mind of service, of
Hmm. Hmm.
sharing what we found, of healing other people, of helping them. And that's how it all started. And I've been really blessed with all this success, but it just has been because of the service, because of the heart and the heartache that it has taken to be here.
That's awesome. I thank you. I think that you are spot on, and that you have to have that servant leadership heart, and that it's not about Kathy, it's not about Elayna, it's about the Sarahs, the Tammys, the Toms, the strangers that we haven't met yet. You
Mine is
know,
Mariela, my avatar. Yeah, she's my imaginary friend, and it's really daunting to publish our struggles.
mm.
Sometimes I'm like, okay, publish, because it's really hard. Like, my whole life is out there, and my darkest thoughts. And
Right.
you know what? When I think about her, my imaginary friend who's struggling and who needs a message of inspiration, I do it for her.
Yeah.
So it's good to have, like you said, that name, that face,
Yes.
that vivid emotion that they're feeling. And then, yeah, we completely forget about ourselves,
Hmm.
and we really have the courage to really dispel the fear through love.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what I hope Girl Fight can be and has been,
Yeah.
uh, just having this My Girl Fight platform so that women can come together and share, and hopes to inspire and motivate and encourage someone so that they know that they're not alone.
You're
That,
saving lives. You're
yeah,
saving
right.
lives,
We
Kathy,
are.
because
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
yes, but I want to, really encourage you and reassure you, because the messages that we share are healing bombs,
Yes.
and
Yes.
you're amplifying. So I'm really grateful to be here and to
Oh, thank
support
you.
Girl Fight, because it's really something that we need in this world. And you're really the best channel with your inspirational
Oh, thank you.
presence and story. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for all you
Thank
do.
you. Thank you. So a little while ago, you were talking about making ourselves vulnerable and publishing our stories. You just recently published a new book, and can you tell us a little bit about Dancing with Death, and its reflections of a student of pain? Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
a collection of poems that you wrote. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? By the way, your the invalidated ballerina is my favorite so far. I've not gotten all through
Yeah.
all of them, but that one's my favorite by far.
Oh,
And
that's one of the ones that I cried the most writing.
okay, tell
Oh,
us about it.
well, it's
I've got
crazy.
tissues, but I don't know if it'll help. Be, you know,
Oh,
being
oh
in
my gosh.
Texas.
Yes. So, mm, I used to love doing art when I was a child, but it was discouraged because it wasn't helpful, right? I, you know, really struggled, being abused, being called worthless every day, being told that I wasn't enough, that I deserved to die. It was every day. It I was beating up physically and emotionally. And so I had all this trauma and I didn't really live the childhood that I wanted. And so when my daughter came from, she's in college now, and she came for Christmas break, she's like, Mom, we're going to join a challenge, and it's a poetry challenge. We're going to each write a poem every day for 21 days, and then we're going to
Oh,
publish it. And I was like, I've never written poetry in English. And
oh,
so that was my first struggle. Like, I had to
right.
overcome that insecurity that came up for me. Like,
Hmm.
I'm not a poet when I was a poet my whole life, right?
Right.
And I can speak English, so I can surely write poetry in English. But you know how those things creep in. And it's
Sure.
it's good to have a partner, someone that believes in you, that pushes you a little bit, not too much. And so we did that. And one of the main takeaways that I want everybody to hear is that, we can live our childhood whenever we want. And healing our inner child is the best work you'll ever do. That's number one.
Absolutely.
Number two, when you do fun things, they can serve as bonding activities with your children or with anyone that you love if
Hmm.
you don't have children,
Right.
and that was just such a bonding experience with my 19-year-old daughter and me. It was just
Yeah.
so great. But then third, what I did with every poem, I relived a painful story, a painful memory, or a painful recurring thought, what we call the inner critic, and
Hmm.
the things, the voices in my head, and all of my encounters with death, because I've been through a lot of near death experiences. And as a matter of fact, I was dead for a few minutes before I
Oh,
was in a
wow.
coma for 8 days. So
Wow.
all of those experiences, I put them in this book, not to, share the darkness, but to this extract the light out of it. So
Sure.
with every poem, I'm turning my pain into poetry, and I'm turning my
I love
pain
that.
into purpose. Thank you. Because there's a prompt, there's a little bit of teaching, because my neuroscience geek
I love it.
inside needed to needed to have that. But also there are prompts so that people can write their own painful story. And the reason why I did that is not just to share painful things. The thing is that we need to process our dark thoughts. And it's like, when something doesn't sit well with your stomach and you need to get it out. I'm sure you're getting a nasty visual right now. Like, blah,
Yeah.
right? It's uncomfortable because something
Right.
doesn't sit right. It has to come out.
Right.
And that's, all of those dark things they don't belong inside of you. They need to
Absolutely.
be shared. And it's the safest space is to share it with yourself, to write
Agree.
it down, to
Yes.
say it to yourself out loud. And when you use the third person, like I did, because the
Hmm.
invalidated ballerina, that's me, but I'm talking as if it's a
Right.
different character. So
Right.
writing your story as if it's someone else is a therapeutic technique called psychological distance that helps
Yeah.
you see things as an observer, and so you
Ah,
can process that pain. Or it could be in
I've
second
probably been
person.
doing that all along, and I didn't know it was a name.
Yeah, yeah. Or when you say, have you ever said to yourself, like, Kathy,
Oh yeah, all
stop
the
that?
time. Cat, stop.
Or Kathy, keep going, right?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
and that's also psychological distance. You're talking to yourself as a higher self, as someone else.
Sure.
And that's something that I discovered. I didn't know a lot of psychology back then. I was 19, but I
Hmm.
discovered it in the coma because I was out of my body and I
Hmm.
was talking to myself down there. I was like,
Wow.
Elayna, you've been through so much. Elayna, it's okay, and reassuring myself. And then I found out that everything I learned in my coma was validated by my faith, validated by, religions all over the world, by psychology and philosophy. So it's really cool when we can just process that. And so it's not only a tool for people, it's also a model, because if
Right.
you do this, then you'll feel differently about the pain that you went through. And so that's why this book of poems is such a labor of love, and it was really daunting to publish it, because it's really a lot of dark thoughts. But you know what, it's what keeps me alive, because I always
Absolutely.
have that dance with death, like, you know, is it true that I should have been dead? Is it true that I don't deserve to live? Is it true? And those voices are gonna come, and
Mhm.
they're probably gonna come until the day that I die. And guess what? I can manage it by processing that. And so if you're struggling with that, any of you are struggling with those thoughts, know that you're not alone,
Right.
and know that that doesn't make you less positive.
Right.
Emotions are just emotions. They are just telling us what's going on. They're not positive or negative. They're pleasant and painful, right?
Right.
We want to, but they're helpful to us. So there's nothing wrong with you. You've been through a lot. And
Mhm.
and can I just say one thing?
Absolutely.
Can we stop comparing our pain?
Oh, right.
It's
Right.
like, oh, Kathy, oh my gosh, you went through that. I have never been through that.
Right. My
You're so
story's
strong.
not,
My
oh
story
yeah,
is nothing
right.
like
No,
yours.
pain is pain.
Pain is pain. Pain is pain. My mentor, Gabor Mate, he says, trauma is not what happens to you, it's what happens inside of you
Right.
as a result of
Absolutely.
what happens to you.
Right.
So if it's painful to you, it doesn't have to be, you know, a car accident and a coma and all of
Right.
this stuff. It
Right.
can be that you lost your pet, or that you didn't get a job, you know, that you wanted to get. Grieving is necessary for every loss that we feel, not
Yes.
that we have, that we
Right.
feel.
Right.
Okay. And so I just wanted to say that, because that's my
Absolutely.
soapbox, Kathy. I just
Absolutely. I can relate to that though, because I was held back from sharing my story for so long. One, because it made me vulnerable. It's
yeah,
scary. Right. And then I was airing all of my, business to the world, but another part of me was held back because I compared my pain to others.
yeah,
And I had to come to that realization. This is my story,
yeah,
my perspective. It might not be the perspective of others and my family. It's my
yeah,
story.
yeah,
It and my story might not be might not be XYZ's on, or, to the right of me, but it's mine. And I had to come to that realization that we all, endure pain differently because it's how we feel. So I relate to that. And that resonates with me quite a bit.
yeah.
And I
And
appreciate you
it's,
mentioning that. Yeah.
thank you. And it is not, something, it happens to you, and it happens to me, and it happens to all of us, because we live in a society where pain is minimized and
Yes.
downplayed and denied. And we are praised for being strong and suffering in silence, and we are shamed for expressing our emotions. It's like, if you,
Absolutely.
if you started crying right now in a, sea of people, they would say, well, Kathy, don't cry.
Right.
And that
Or
is
if they didn't say anything, they were thinking, oh, she's emotional.
yeah, yeah. And that's, we get invalidated. Oh, she's too dramatic, or she's too emotional, too sensitive. And the
Mhm.
truth is that we all are, and that it is healthy to be that. It is healthy
Right.
to be authentic.
Yes.
And it is healthy to be, to process those emotions, to cry when you feel like crying, to laugh out loud when you want to laugh out loud,
Yes. Absolutely.
take space.
Yes. It's okay.
Yeah, yeah,
It's healthy.
yes,
So I've got you mentioned your girls a little while ago, and the reason I bring this back up is because I'm huge about, I a little bit more about my background because we shared that, and others, in the audience do as well. But this is all about you today. But what resonates with me, you told me and when we last spoke, what your girls are doing today, and knowing where we both come from and thinking about my boys and where they are today, and the destructive cycles that I broke over their lives and the destructive cycles that you broke over your girls' lives. I want the audience to hear what they're doing.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Thank you.
We've
See, we
we've
are so beautiful when we are
we
real.
it's not about Kathy, it's not about Elayna. It's about our legacy
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
we get to leave behind.
Yes.
And I'm passionate about that.
Yeah.
And for those listening to me sob, it's a beautiful thing to be able to pass those things on to our children. So if we're not doing it for ourselves, we need to do it for those around us and those that love us, that value us. And I know what your girls are doing today, and I just want to. I'm just so blessed to hear that they are thriving, and I'd like you to be able to give a proud mom moment and talk about your girls.
Oh, that will take a while, but I'll try to be as
No,
brief
we can
as
talk all
possible.
day, but your daughters are doing amazing things, and I think that it's worthy of mention. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah. The best thing is that I've learned a lot from my girls, and I've been able to reconnect with my bold, sassy, dreamer self through them.
mhm,
And um, I don't take credit for the beautiful, amazing, accomplished girls that they are. But I'll tell you one thing that I did right is not get in their way and to allow them to be who they want to be, how they want to be it. And
right.
so, with that, they were born amazing, they were born whole and wonderfully made. And right now, my two oldest, Alicia and Alyssa, when Alyssa was 6 years old, she says, "Mom, I want to be an author like you. So I want to publish a book before my seventh birthday."
That's
and
awesome.
so and so she in one weekend she drew all these pictures of people in their professions, like an astronaut, an opera singer, and a lawyer, and all of these things. And then she called it "See What I Can Become." Mira lo que puedo ser. It was bilingual. And so she got on the news. She donated a book to her school because and all of that stuff. And she's just larger than life. Um, then following year, her sister was bullied in school, and
Say that again.
so that she was bullied in school. So
Um,
my Alyssa, my second, but then my oldest got bullied, and so we found out. I mean, she was very, very scared to share it with me again because we are afraid to say we're not perfect. We are
mhm.
afraid. So even though I didn't teach her that, she was amongst people that told her that, and so she said came to us and told us that she was being bullied, and we cried together, we strengthened one another, and the healing process began. And what happened is that they decided, once my oldest was strong enough in her own sense of self through everything that we did, she said, "Mom, I'm so grateful, and I'm also sad."
Mm,
And I said, "What's going on?" And she said, "Well, there are many kids that don't have a mom that can spend the time or the energy or even knows what to do to when their kids are bullied."
mm,
So there are many kids that don't know what I know now on how to regain my self-esteem. So together, the two of them, of course, Alyssa being the larger than life girl, she said, "Let's write a book about it. Let's help all these kids and put it in a book." And they together created a book called "I Love Me, seven self-esteem in 76 steps, and that book immediately became a bestseller.
Oh,
they
wow.
they actually spoke at a conference of adults that was over 500 people, and they all pre-sold the book to everyone.
Wow.
People were buying 20, 30, 50 copies of this book
That's
to,
amazing.
yes, to give to the schools and to give to their libraries and to give to people in their family and in their neighborhoods, because their vision was to get this book to the kids that would not be able to buy it.
Right.
And
Right.
so that was the proudest moment of, you know, their childhood, because it's like you're again having that servant heart, and
Yes.
you're thinking of others, and you're thinking about how to create that. They created partnerships with brands that bought the book for whole organizations of girls in inner cities here in Dallas, and that they used to come and speak for. They've spoken in several countries, and just the things that they're doing to help other youth are so inspiring to me, because
That
when you
is.
said, you know, that it's not about us, it's not even about our children only.
Right.
It's about the lives that they're going to be touching.
Right.
Because when I see about all those kids that have received those messages from my girls, it was made possible because I broke those cycles.
Right.
That's what you're doing too with this
Right.
platform. You're not only touching your children and making a positive difference in your home, you're making a positive difference in the world.
Yes.
And
Yes.
even after we pass on, the ripple effect is going to continue. But I'm going to say something though, because I have those soapbox moment, right? I do it for me too.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
have I have learned, I started out doing it for them, and that's how I got off the floor, which is great. But you know what? Once you're off the floor, you gotta affirm yourself and tell yourself that you are worthy,
Yes.
that it is, that you do deserve any abundance of, I'm going to say peace first because it's so important.
Right.
Peace, love, financial prosperity, health, abundance, connections, and just relationships that are precious to you. All of the things that you dream about and wish for, you are deserving of it. So this life is for you to also enjoy. And
Yes.
yes, I'm the same person that's talking about the voices that tell me I should die. But you know what?
Absolutely.
I also have voices that tell me I should live. And
Yeah.
so it is my choice who I listen to. And I learned that in my childhood because I had one parent that told me all the beautiful things that I had and I could be. And then I had one parent that really beat me down, and I chose who to believe. And it was different. Like I chose to believe one at a certain moment and one at a different moment, but I learned that it was a choice. And sometimes the choice, Kathy, is not who to believe, but who can I ask for help so I can
Sure.
believe that.
Right.
Like
Right.
I okay, so I deserve to live. I don't fully get it right now, but maybe I should call Kathy and she can tell me why.
Yeah.
You
All right.
know?
And I
Because
will. I will tell you all day
exactly,
long. Just
exactly.
call
And,
me.
and I will do it for you.
Yes.
You know? And it doesn't have to be that big either. It could be like
No.
whether I should go for this dream or
Right.
apply for this job or get or this internship or whatever it is that you dream of. My mantra is, if God gives you a vision, he gives you permission and he gives
Right.
you provision,
Yeah.
so you're taken care of.
Yes. And I'm glad that you said that because, we talked a little bit about bullying and, being that support, right? I've been on both sides of the coin. I've been bullied and I kept that. I didn't talk about that. Instead, I
Mm,
became the opposite. I became the very thing that I was fighting against. I became the bully. And I fought for years, and I just had this rage all up inside of me that, and I just pushed the entire world away. I was just so negative and so, engulfed in that for so long. And, and I still have my moments where my honey calls it the KCJ comes out of me. I'm feisty, but I'm
Yes.
trying every day to repurpose that negative,
Yeah.
that feistiness to drive for my goals and my children and for
Yeah.
those around me. But
Well,
I've
can I?
been on both sides of the coin, and I would much rather be that cheerleader, that
Yes.
supporter, the person to provide, so in that positive seed, whether I ever see it grow or not. There
Yeah.
were so many people in my life, like the teacher that gave you that and that life-changing hug,
Mhm.
and there's so many people, that they don't realize those seeds that they've sown, how it's grown.
Exactly. Yeah. And can I reframe something for you? Is that
Yeah.
okay? Well, it's not negative to be angry.
Right. Right.
Um, and I think that's why we're still angry. Is because
Right.
we think it's negative. And one of the worst things that have ever happened to me, and again, not comparing the pain, but just like the memory of
Sure.
it, is that I was kidnapped by a stranger
Oh.
when I was 19 years old. And my goodness, it was so horrible and so horrifying. And I was able to escape. And one of the things that happened with me is that I was so angry all the time. And, people were saying that like I was negative, I was
Mm.
angry, I was this. And you know what? That anger is a very essential part of grieving.
Sure.
And people kept telling me, well, he was going to kill you and you survived. That's a miracle.
Right.
And the pregnancy test is negative. That's a miracle. And he's going to pay for his crime. That's a miracle. And it didn't feel like a miracle.
Right.
I hated my whole body. I hated all these people that were, part of this trial where I was being made to prove that it happened to me. And it was every single day people were telling me to be positive and to have gratitude.
Right.
And when I talk about being positive, there's a difference.
Sure.
There's a difference between being positive and not processing,
Right. Right.
and being positive after processing. And so when you talk about you being negative, no, you were suffering, you were surviving.
Yes.
You didn't have the tools that you have today to process that grief. And
Yes.
so sometimes we look at our younger selves, and we we fail to look at how it served us, because again, that's motivation. It's motivation. If you didn't fight, you probably wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
It's how you numb your own pain so
Right.
that you could survive. And so now we know that we don't have to numb the pain. If you're listening to us, you don't have to numb it with fighting or with food or
Right.
with, you know, hurting others or with hurting yourself through addiction. You can actually just sit with it, process it, write about it, talk to yourself, talk to that person, or ask for that hug, and that will make it go away for now. And I'll say that I'll back that up with science so that you don't have to take my word for it. Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor, she's a neuroanatomist. Look her up if you're interested. She says that any emotion that we experience, whether it's joy or disgust or scary,
Mm-hmm.
just fear, horror, or it's intense pain, the emotion lasts 90 seconds. It's called the 90-second rule.
Mm.
So any more time than that, we're choosing to stay in it.
Right.
So you could just dedicate 90 seconds to feel that. Like, I lost.
Kind of allowing yourself that time.
Yeah.
Right.
And you could give yourself longer than that.
Longer.
But
Right.
but if you just say, you know what, I just have to face this fear for 90 seconds, talk to myself and talk to myself like, Elayna, you've got this. It's
Right.
gonna be okay. And reassuring myself as a
Right.
as that person that we want to be in our lives. Because you know what? We all want a best friend and a soulmate, and
Mm-hmm.
for our mom of the past to be the mom that we wanted her to be. And guess what? The only person that you got all the time, 24
Right.
hours a day from birth to death, is you.
Right.
So if you take every single day that time to give yourself what you need, then you will be okay. And that's
Yes.
what we didn't have when we were young. And we were angry and resentful. And
Mm-hmm.
we acted out
Mm-hmm.
because we didn't know what else to do to survive.
Right. Right.
And now we have the tools, so we can take that feistiness. I'm feisty like you wouldn't believe. I think you can tell. I think it comes out a little bit. But you can take that flavor and make something beautiful with it.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
I don't want to shame myself anymore. I used to so much
Mm-hmm.
because I thought I was too much or not
Mm-hmm.
enough. I'm
Right.
just right. Like, what is it, Goldilocks? Yeah, I'm just right. I just need to use it in a different way. And I'm going to end with saying that has made me be a better mom.
Mm-hmm.
Because whenever I see my daughter, instead of saying, "Oh, you're so stubborn, you're so, obstinate," or, anything that
Right.
can come to mind, I don't even know anymore because I don't use them. But I say, "Whoa, you're so persistent. That's going to take you far in life. Oh, you're a great negotiator. That's
Yes.
fabulous. Okay, well, let's negotiate it this way because I'm also a great negotiator too. You got it from me." And so basically, instead of looking at this like tantrum and at
Sure.
this person who's a defiant child, talk to
Right.
me. I was the defiant child and the black sheep and all that stuff. I look at a leader. I look
Right.
at us an assertive girl that is not going to be abused, let herself be abused like I did
Sure.
because I silenced my feisty girl. So let's look at that.
Yes.
Boom. I'm gonna stop because I
Drop
can
the
go on
mic.
forever. I
I
can go
love
on
that.
forever. I just get on it.
No, that's perfect. I think this has been a great time, and I'm super excited to continue this relationship. And
Yeah.
I think that My Girl Fight and the PositiveMom.com audience is going to love this, and I'm so excited to be able to
Yeah.
publish this tomorrow.
Yeah.
And yay!
Gonna
And
share it with
I think
everybody.
right, I couldn't put a better bow on it, so I'm going to leave it there as well. I think that was a perfect drop, mic drop.
Oh, thank you, Kathy. Thank you for having me, and thank you for your love. Thank you for your fight, because
Yes,
it's amazing.
yes, yes. I truly appreciate you, and I think that this is the beginning of a wonderful relationship,
Yeah,
and I'm truly
it's
looking forward
perfect.
to it. Yes,
Yeah,
yes. Thank you all for watching. We also will have the audio on Spotify as a podcast for those that want to share. If you have any questions for myself or for Elayna, please shoot me an email or a message. My email is Kathy@mygirlfight.com. Thanks. Have a great day and bless.